Lord. पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते आज हमारे आलोचना पर्व ब्रह्म उपलब्धि 546तम पर्व आज 2016 साले जून मासेर 12 तारीख रविवार साधन रहस्येर एटी 461तम पर्वेर आलोचना ब्रह्म आवाहनेर 361तम पर्वेर आलोचना आजकेर प्रसंग सत्येर विस्तृति Today we shall discuss part of the program today we shall have in English and the remaining in Bengali for the benefit of our friends who are from other language group. There is a request, that's why we will do a discussion in English in the beginning. The sages have talked about the spiritual principle of living. the spiritual principle of living is based on two basic understanding. One is faith, the other one is devotion. Faith and devotion are the fundamental principles of spiritual living. Faith connotes to faith in God. Faith has to be structured, rigid, formed. And devotion requires to be attempted to fine-tune to the object of devotion, who is God. Faith in God and devotion to God, this combine the spiritual basis of living and living our divine life on earth. The fundamental principles which Vedas have talked about is inculcating the faith in life and trying to develop the devotion in the character and behavior of the person. When we try to inculcate faith in life, it requires a constant practice for that. If we can remember the name of God, think of Him in our mind, gradually the mind becomes pure one. The usual form of mind, the usual nature of mind is to get contaminated with the vices of the world. There are two very distinct, very important vices that stand in the way of attaining the faith, developing the faith in life. According to Sri Ramakrishna, one of the most important vices that stands in the way to realize God is selfish ego. So that's one of the most important fundamental vices which has to be confronted with, which has to be removed from our individual being. Selfish ego is the first obstruction to our realization of God. The other one, according to Sri Ramakrishna, is the desire, which is intrinsic in human beings. The modern civilization has actually nurtured the concept of desire and welcomed the concept of desire as the building block of our civilization. When we talk about making a world economic benefit for people, desire is something which creates the demand for products and services in the market, and economic process works out because of that. In the want of desire, economic process does not survive. That is the reason given by the modern mind to accommodate and to nurture the desire in their personal being. But on the other hand, when we are prey to the desire, when we are contained by the desire, that's known as our imprisonment. We are imprisoned by the desire. Desire gets us locked inside and doesn't allow us to move forward freely in the realm of God. A desire is naturally, usually attempted to possess things in the world. When we attempt to possess things in the world and we try to acquire in our own way through any means, then we forget about the general principles of fairness and values. And that's how, and that's why it creates a chaos in the society and rupture in the civilization. A God-centric man, a God-centric person, the person who has got some attraction for divine in life, the person who is actually attracted to God, will always try to develop some elements of devotion inside, and in the process will dilute a significant component of desire. And the moment the desire is diluted to a significant extent, the person would automatically become an entity who would have the basis and the, the capacity to accept, to accommodate, to welcome, to nurture the principle of divine, and to have a love for God generated in his mind, his or her mind. Therefore, desire is something which needs to be understood and needs to be isolated from our own being. It has to be contained. The Vedic principle talks about 4 different aspects of life: dharma, artha, kama and moksha. These 4 different aspects of life creates a balance in life. Dharma is the righteous principle of living a life. From the very childhood, a person needs to follow certain righteous principles. Dhritik shamaha damaha steho shaucho indriya nigraha tir vidya satyam akshodha. There are 10 different principles as mentioned by Bhagavan Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that you need to nurture certain values in your life to maintain a good life, a godly life. A godly life will automatically have certain divine principles inbuilt in it. Inbuilt in it, the divine principles would always grow and flourish like a small seedling which grows into a plant and gradually grows into a tree. It has to grow with its roots and tentacles beneath, very strong, and should grow above to spread its message to the world. A person who has adhered to the divine principles, spiritual principles in life, would always spread the message of God in the world. How? The question is, how do you spread the message? Unless you attend, you don't have the right to spread. You cannot, you should not. Therefore, the first principle is, try to develop yourself in the realm of God, think of God, nurture the idea of God, nurture the values of God, nurture the divine values within, and at the same time try to cut down to size the desire, and try to reduce to a significant extent the selfish ego which is there within. Sri Ramakrishna says the selfish ego is something which is very, very difficult to remove thoroughly from the life. It's true. It's very difficult to remove it thoroughly, but it's always possible to tame it down to its lowest level. So when it's tamed down to its lowest level, it cannot cause harm to the person, cannot stand in the way of the person to attain and to progress in the path of God. And the moment we are in a position to tame it down, we will be in a position to think of God in a free atmosphere of mind. The mind is now free from the clutches of the selfish ego and the desires. When the mind is free from the clutches of selfish ego and desire, the mind can grow high, can spread across. It becomes a bigger mind, broader mind, which can accommodate the message of God. At this condition, at this stage, the person can hear the unheard, can see the unseen, can touch the untouched. They can hear the unheard. We have in this ear following, it's always blowing, it's always moving across, the message of God across. If you have your ears developed for that, if your ears are trained for that, you can receive the message, you can uncode it and can decipher what is there carried down to you by the divine. Agni Nile Purohitam Jagnyashadeva Sutaram Ratnadhatamam. The sage says, the fire that I have kindled across me, the fire I have lighted before me, the fire is the messenger. The fire, the fire, you are the messenger of divine. You are carrying the message from myself to the divine entity, to this infinite divine entity. And the moment you carry it forward, carry it upward to him, you don't forget to express, don't forget to convey that I am here waiting for him, I am here waiting to receive him, I am here always trying to call on him, I am here always trying to have a meet with him, I want to have a union with him, I want to be by his side, I want him to come down and remain by my side. So the fire would always carry the message of the aspirant to the divine, and the fire, when it's kindled appropriately in the heart of the divine aspirant, the fire would always take him above, take him forward, and take him beyond the limits of his selfish individual selfish ego. And the individual selfish ego thereby would be diminished to a minimum extent, and it's going to be thinned down to its minimal size. It's not going to create any further harm. It's not going to cause any further resistance to your way to attain God, attain the realization of God. Sri Ramakrishna says, the devotion, when we have the devotion, a devotion which is free from all aspirations, devotion which is free from all wants and desires, is the true devotion. When we have the devotion which is free from the clutches of aspirations, devotion mixed with aspiration is one, devotion free from aspirations is another. Devotion mixed with aspiration and expectations is a mixed devotion, doesn't take you forward, doesn't take you to the height of the divine. It cannot. It's now one-winged flyer. A single-winged flyer cannot take you up, and it cannot have that kind of pervasive growth, that kind of pervasive movement. So you need to have a devotion which is free from the clutches of desire, a devotion which is free from all expectations and desire, would carry you, would take you to the divine domain. And when you reach there, you will find that that's a realm, that's a world, that's a area, that's a place where you are thoroughly contained within, and all your needs, all your requirements, all the logical requirements of yours, all the fair needs of yours would be automatically fulfilled by the divine over there. Divine is omnipresent, is omnipotent, and he understands your expectations, he understands your mind, he understands your initiative, he understands you in totality. The sage says, Ritena mitraha varunaha ritavidhaha rita sprishaha kratuhu brihantama shatehi kavina mitraha varunaha tuvijataha urushvaya dakshyandadati yadusa. The sage is actually talking about the aspiration for God, your internal, your intrinsic intent to be one with the divine. And what is the vehicle? In our life, if we abandon truth, if we are placing our life apart from truth, if we are mixing in a path, if we are following a path which is untruth or partly truth, then it's very difficult to attain that realization. So the first principle is the principle or adoption of truthful life. A truth in life and truth in action is Ritam. Sage says the Ritam and Satyam, these two are the basic principles. As you mentioned, that devotion and apart from the selfish ego, we need to get rid of the selfish ego, and we need to adopt devotion in our life, and in the process we accept the path of divinity through the journey in truthful life, truthful ways, truth in concept, truth in principle, and at the same time truth in action. Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, these four aspects of life. When we have the righteous principle says adopt, accept and follow the path of the truth, path of fairness, where you have a right to live, you have a right to grow, you have a right to expect things from the world, you have a right to survive, you have a right to allow your mind to flourish. But at the same time, you need to consider, you need to respect the right of others for the same. The same eternal possession, the same cosmic arrangement, the same cosmic providence has to be there for everybody, has to be there for everyone. The same cosmic providence has to be there distributed to everyone. A fair distributive justice has to take place in the world. And when we find that distributive justice is there, present in man, present in human society, we find that there is a role of the divine principles, divine values to have a play in the world. And this is what the sages have always expected in India, in our ancient civilization, to grow. This is what was the basis of their living. The sages during the Vedic period had actually compartmentalized, categorized life into four aspects, because the basis of life has to be the righteous principle. But then life cannot grow, life cannot remain without the possession, without the adherence, without accepting the world. So you need to accept the world, at the same time you need to go beyond the world. You need to accept the world in its totality, but at the same time you need to grow beyond the limits of the world. The world should not dominate you in your principle, and should not bring you down, to not reduce you down to a worldly person. Be in the world but do not belong to it. That's the fundamental principle of spiritual living. Be in the world. We need to be in the world. We need to be in the midst of all these plants and trees, shrubs and herbs, animals and human beings. You need to be in the midst of this air, this water, this entire immense resources of the infinite, infinite nature. But at the same time, we need to belong to God. We need to belong to the divine world in our mind and in our heart. In the cave of our heart, we worship Him. We bring Him to the cave of the heart. We invite Him there. We allow Him a seat over there, and we worship Him over there. So when we find the divine is there in the midst of us, we are there in the midst of the world, we are there in the midst of these air and water, these animals and the physical world, we are there in the midst of this world moving forward, but we are there in the midst of God's also. We live in the middle of God's. There are so many forms around us, there are infinite forms around us. All the infinite forms are the representative of different types of representations of God. They are the representatives of God in different ways. The infinite forms that are around us, in the form of animals, in the form of trees, in the form of herbs, in the form of shrubs, in the form of air, in the form of water, He is there present, He is omnipresent, He is present everywhere. And He is present in us, He is present amongst us, He is present everywhere. He is present in the matter, He is present in living organisms, He is present in the shunya, in the vacuum, in the sky. He is present in the sky, He is present everywhere. He is present in Antariksha, He is present in Devalok, He is present in the land of the world of the divines. He is present in Manushalok, He is in the land of the humans. He is present everywhere. He is present in the land of the world of the subhumans. He is present in everywhere, every level, every creature, every living entity, every non-living entity. Is present in a material form, in a living form, in a non-living form, in a form of zero, where nothing is visible, where nothing is plausible, where nothing is found, where we find that its shunya is vacuum, is present in everywhere. Let us consider Him present around us, in us, and let us consider ourselves as His embodiment. The sages say that Prajnanam Brahma, when we attain the knowledge of divine, the wisdom of divine, the wisdom itself is divine. Divine Himself represents through His wisdom, His talks, His words, His name. When we utter the name of God, Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. When we utter the name of God, we utter the divine principle, we accept the divine principle, we invite Him in us, we invite Him to be our friend, our guide, to be within us, we invite Him to remain in us, we invite Him to embody us. So when we accept His name with devotion, we develop a love for Him. And Sri Ramakrishna says, this love for the divine is the basis of your journey towards Him in an intrinsic manner. When we have a love for Him, a care for Him, we are always tuned to take care of His wishes. What is His wish in this universe? Why has He created this universe? Why is this creation? Why is this human society? Why is this human civilization? We would ask the questions to ourselves and we find an answer. The divine has a wish to make it a divine world. Divine has a wish to create a divine world within and without. Divine has created this divine world but not yet turned this into a divine world. It is our destined responsibility to help Him out and to create this world and to make this world, to convert this world, to transform this world to a world of divines. How do we do it? That's the question. As the sages have said, when we are free from the self clutches of the selfish ego, when we are free from the spell of the desires, when we are free from all this and we have nurtured, we have developed some element of devotion within, then we start the journey of making everybody or inviting everybody to join us in the race of calling, in the race of establishing a divine society on this earth, in the home of this earth. And we have this divine society. When the seed is formed, the seed shall grow into its full blossoming, and the seed would carry it forward, the message forward, and this message would always spread around, and the message of divine would create the elements of divinity in the minds of people. We need to think about God. We need to adopt the thinking of God. When we adopt the thinking of God, we nurture Him, we take care of Him. Sometimes when we become a full devotees, we become a complete devotees, we become a destined devotee, we nurture the devotion within, He becomes a follower of ourselves. Then God becomes the follower of a devotee. God follows the words of a devotee. God follows the devotee. God follows the devotee's action. God follows to fulfill the devotee's wish. When the wish is divine, when the wish is fully nurtured, when the wish is fully immersed in God, then Divine Himself follows him. Divine Himself helps him. Divine Himself provides him the energy, the strength to move forward, to do it, to fulfill it, to complete it. That's our responsibility in this human society. Our sages have always urged upon to establish the path of truth. How do we establish the path of truth? Unless the divine thoughts is there, unless the nurturing of God is there, unless we call upon God, unless we adopt God or accept God in our mind, in our heart, unless we accept God always in our mind, or let all the cells in our body, in our existence, talk about God. Let all the cells in our existence, in its own cellular mind, talk about God, symphony of God, symphony of devotion to God. Let it flourish, let it grow within, and let it spread across the message of God, message of divine in the human society. Our sages have talked about Tattvamasihi. Our sages have talked about Prajnanan Brahma. Prajnanan Brahman is the divine, the knowledge of the divine, wisdom of the divine, symbolizing divine himself. Tattvamasi is a transformation. When the wisdom or the knowledge of the divine through a process of devotion is adopted within, is nurtured within, and the realization sits in a person, immediately the person gets transformed in its own qualities, attributes. The qualities and attributes get transformed. How? Like a metal through a scientific process gets transformed when there is a molecular arrangement is changed. If we can change a molecular arrangement, we can convert a piece of iron to a piece of gold. How do we do it? We do it through our changes, a transformation in the molecular structure. Or that means in the fundamental structure. If we make a change in the fundamental structure, the element becomes different. The element becomes a different element. Similar is the case with the human person. When we have our changes in the attributes of the person, changes in the attributes at the elemental level of the person, changes in the attributes of the individual at the elemental level, at the fundamental building block level. At that level, when there is a change, that change would always give rise to a new entity, a new person. The person would externally look the same. The person would externally appear the same. The person would externally do the same work, same set of things. But at the same time, there will be a transformation in the intrinsic world, inner world of the person, and the person is a different one. The person is now turned into a divine person. How does he do? Now he talks about, he thinks about, he contains God within. He always carries God forward. Inseparable existence. God and man becomes one single entity. Man becomes a godly man. A godly man is a person who has acquired the godly habit, the godly character, the godly attributes, the godly values, the godly principles within himself through a process of transformation
at the elemental level. When there is a transformation at the elemental level, there cannot be any resistance of the selfish ego or the desire, because the selfish ego needs a basis, a platform to survive, to operate, and to dominate the life. It needs a mind who is actually slave to it. A mind which is slave to the desires is a mind which would be under the control, under the domination of the selfish ego. A mind which is apart from the selfish ego is a mind which has removed, which has left aside the desires, the elements of desires. That mind is a mind which the sages have called Subarna Jati Manaha. That means the mind which is a golden mind, a mind which is different from the usual form of mind. Chitta, Manasa, Buddhi, Prajna. These are the four aspects of mind. Chitta is the seed weight of memory. In the seed weight of memory, this mind, when it's turned into a golden mind, this mind would always try to dig up, always try to retrieve the memories when and where, which occasion it had the chance to have a thinking of God, interaction of a godly person, will think about that. The mind would now try to identify those incidences, those elements of memory, those aspects of the memory where the person had a chance to hear good things, chances to see good things, chances to have good things nurtured in interactions with the divine person, words from a divine person, words from the Lord. So that condition of the mind, that chitta, that seed bed of memory now changes to a seed bed of divine memory. So it's different from the previous chitta. It's now a new chitta. It's now a divine chitta, which is actually seed bed of the memories of divine interactions, divine contacts, divine contents, and divine messages in the life. Then manas, the mind proper. Mind thinks about things for the forward, for the future. Now the thinking, when the basis of thinking changes, in a new condition, in a transformed condition, the person should think of God at the same time when the person is thinking of material elements, thinking of things in the world. Thinking of God does not make the mind waste its potential energy. Thinking of God, nurturing the idea of God, never wastes the capacity of mind, limits the capacity of mind, never reduces the capacity of mind, rather the opposite one. The mind is now developed one, an elaborate mind, is a broader mind. Mind is now having a greater capacity, larger capacity, superior potential. The mind can now contain more elements, more contents, elements for many people. Now the mind is now not only for the person, but also for many others. Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya cha. Now the mind is now for many, not for the only individual single person, not for only the himself or herself. Now the mind is for any people and every person, every people, many people around, for the world, for the civilization. This mind is the broader mind, is the element, is the entity, is the embodiment of the divine mind called the mind which is a Shubhana Jati Maiman, a mind which is golden now, a mind which has got golden attributes, the divine attributes. This mind thinks of war, this mind always thinks of God, like the mind of the gopis and gopinis in Vrindavan. When they were thinking of God, the divine, they were thinking of divine every moment. They were doing the work, they were doing the work in hand, they were doing the work throughout the day, they were doing the personal work, they were doing the work, nurturing their, caring their babies, the children, the family people, they were doing their kitchen work, they were doing their family work, they were doing their professional work, they were doing everything. But at the same time, they had their mind left behind, they had their mind left forward for the divine. They were always tuned to the divine, they were always after the divine, they were always curious to hear the flute, the beautiful flute, the tunes of the flute, when Lord Krishna shall blow the flute. And the moment they hear that, they would rush to him in whatever position, in whatever condition they were at that moment. They would fly, they would rush, they would run to that place and they would meet him, they would like to meet the God over there. Why? Because their mind was tuned to hear. Their mind was tuned to hear the message of God. Their mind was tuned to hear the call of God. Their mind was tuned to the broader mind, the divine mind, tuned to contain the message of the divine. They are now, after they are going forward, they're moving forward. They did not have wasted their time and energy. They have not wasted their time and energy. They have contained their time and energy. They have contained their potent. They have contained the potent, and yet they have grown and they have gone to the realization of God, the attainment of God. They have attained the divine in principle. They have attained the divine in practice. They have God. They have attained the divine in person. So this is manas, buddhi. When we talk about the buddhi, buddhi is intellect. In our material form, the buddhi is the material buddhi, material intellect. Material intellect has got a mix of this demand for the world and demand for the intrinsics. Demand for the world and demand for the intrinsics together, it makes it a complex one. The intellect is a complex intellect. The intellect is guided by, in principle, guided by the selfish ego. And therefore, this intellect cannot take you ahead. Now, Upanishad says, Atmanam rathinam vidhi, shariram ratham evatahu, buddhi tuhu sarati vidhi, manaho pragraham evachaha, buddhi tuhu sarati vidhi. What is this intellect doing? The intellect is trying to divide the chariot of this life. Intellect is trying to drive. How does it drive and which direction? It drives it in the direction of the worldly path. It takes the chariot in the usual way, in the usual path of desire, in the usual path of attainment, in the usual path of worldly possessions. Now, if there is a transformation in this intellect, if the quality of the intellect changes, if there is a properties of intellect changes, attributes of intellect changes, what happens? The intellect becomes a divine intellect. The intellect becomes a divine intellect in a way that, it now looks at the person seated on the chariot. Now it looks behind, and it finds that divine himself is seated on the chariot. Divine himself is there on the chariot. Divine himself is there in your chariot, the chariot of this life. Why don't we look at him? Why don't we take messages from him? Why don't we take lesson from him, guidance from him? When the intellect has that, when the intellect is tuned to that, when the intellect has developed that property, that attitude, intellect would take you down, would take your attention down to the backseat where the Lord is seated, where Atman is seated there. The Paramatman, the Supreme Self is seated inside. The Supreme Self is seated within the cave of your heart in the form of Atman. And now let's look at that Supreme Self who is seated there in the form of Atman, and let this chariot of life be driven at his instance, under his guidance, let it move forward, and then the intellect would be our intellect proper. That's the real intellect. Saha chaturi chaturi. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna has said, Saha chaturi chaturi. That intellect, that kind of intelligent action is the real intelligent action. When that intelligent action would convert your intellect to a divine intellect and would allow you, take you to look back and look at the divine who is seated inside the cave of your heart, and would induce you, would persuade you to take lesson, to message and guidance from him. When the life takes lesson and guidance from him, life moves forward according to his wish and will. When the life moves forward according to the wish and will of the divine seated within, the life becomes the journey of a divine person. This is the journey of a divine person. And this journey leads to where? Chitta, Manas, Buddhi, and then Prajna. It leads to that Prajnanan Brahma, that Prajna, that wisdom, the wisdom of the divine. When we attain the realization of God, realization of the Supreme, and in this realization of the Supreme, we find that Supreme is always with us, always in us, and always there at our behest. And if we are attempting to if we have the mind to surrender to Him, to come back to Him, to appeal to Him, to come and be seated in us, to come and guide us in our life, and then the Supreme becomes alive. Supreme is the life guidance to us in our life. All our karmas, all our actions, all our thoughts, all our chintan, all our thoughts, all our actions would be driven by the Divine, would be guided by the Divine. And when the actions and thoughts are guided by the Divine, then we find the destiny is created, destiny created in accordance. As we know, destiny has a connection with the thoughts. When we sow a seed of thought, we reap in an action. Sow a thought, reap an act. When we sow the seed of a thought, we reap in an action. An action is generated out of some element, some kind of thought. Thought is prelude to the action. When we have nurtured certain kind of thought, that would lead to an action. A good thought would lead to a good action. A mixed thought would lead to a mixed action. A bad thought would lead to a bad action. So thought generates an action. And when the action is repeated, so an act, reap a habit. When an action is repeated in life, actions repeated creates a habit in life. When we have actions repeated in life, that creates a habit in life. And what is the habit? When the action is towards our dedication of God, when an action is tuned to dedicate ourselves to God, when an action is tuned to worship God, contain God, accept God, invite God in our life, that action itself is an action which is destined to create a habit in us. So repeated action would create a habit. What is this habit? The habit is now different. It's not that, it's no longer that empirical habit which would be carrying forward. It's a divine habit which would generate out of this empirical habit. So a new habit, habit of always being in God, habit of always remembering God, habit of always being in the realm of God. That habit is very important. That habit has to be nurtured. The entire purpose of sadhana, the entire purpose of meditation is to create a habit, is to create a habit of devotion, is to create a habit of realization of God, is to create a habit to be in the path of journey of God, to create a habit of nurturing the ideas of God, the concept of God, the principles of God, the cosmic play of God, remembering the divine play of God. So when we have developed a habit, the habit in repetition, the habit in continuation would lead to a character. So sow a habit, reap a character. When we sow the seed of habit, the habit repeated in a person, habit continued by a person, a particular habit continued by a person, repeatedly continued by a person, would lead to, give rise to a particular character, a divine habit, therefore would give rise to, would lead to a divine character. And a divine character would always give rise to a destiny. So a divine character would finally flourish into, blossom into a divine destiny. So if we want a divine destiny, the first is the divine thought. When we nurture a thought at the level of thinking, let us adopt God, the principle of God. Let's think of God. Let's think of having nurtured the love for God. We have, Sri Ramakrishna has explained, we have different types of love in the world. At the human scale, we have experienced different types of love. Love for the mother, a mother's love for the child, a wife's love for the husband, a love for others. All these loves are transient, partial. A love for divine is eternal one. It's long. It's sustainable. It's the true love, a love for divine. A love for divine when it's out of any, when it's removed from any expectation, when it's devoid of any expectation, when it's free from all desires. A love for the divine is the best love on earth, which the gopis, which the Vrindavan gopis had revealed, the love for God without any cause for that. No cause, no return, no expectation, no want, but then again it was thoroughly fulfilling. The moment you nurture the love for God, it's God's responsibility to take care of you. Yogakshema Bahamaham. The Lord says, Yogakshema Bahamaham. I take care of your eternal being, eternal life. I take care of your empirical life. I take care of your eternal life, meaning I take care of your journey, the way you are trying to realize God. I take care of your journey towards God. I take care of your swadhana. I take care of your meditation. I take care of your devotion. You are nurtured by God. Now you are handheld by Divine Himself. So you will not be going astray. You will not be faltering. Now you are sure you are going to attain the divine realization. And the moment you are taken care of by God, then you are free from all this thinking. You just think of God. So thinking of God, the very simple principle in life, the spiritual principle in life is very simple. Let us all concentrate in our thinking. Think of God, and think of God. When we think of God, we continuously think of God. We nurture the ideas of divine within, and we nurture the ideas of divine within in such a passion that all the cells in the body, all the elements of the existence, all the elements gradually develops of potential thinking in a dynamic environment, and that thinking is thinking of God. It's like a symphony where many people are chanting the name of God, when thousands of people are chanting the name of God. Look at yourself. In your own existence, there are millions of cells, and each cell is now having a chanting the name of God. And when each cell is chanting the name of God, it's a symphony of millions within yourself. It's a symphony of millions in you who are always thinking of God, chanting the name of God, in the aspiration, in their eyes to realize God. Everyone, every self is now urging upon the divine. Oh, the divine, you, oh, the Supreme Self, you come and take seat in us and reside in us. The divine principle in life begins this way. Our sages, in our ancient civilization, the Vedic sages, they had talked about this intrinsic divine principles. In a way, they were always tuned to God. They were always the spirits of God. There are a lot of explanations given by the Pandits, the scholars from across the world. They have mentioned the Vedas is for the karma kanda. That means certain actions, certain jnana, certain sacrificial fire, certain actions are there. It's an action based and aspiration based. These are all divine, the empirical aspiration. The aspiration like give me this, give me that, give me worldly matters, give me wealth, give me pleasure, give me happiness, give me all. It may happen. A person may have an aspiration, but that was not the intent of the sages during our Vedic period. The Vedic sages in our Upanishads, in our Vedas, that was not the intent. The intent is you aspire, but that aspiration is the aspiration of God. You aspire for Him. You aspire for Him. You aspire for the goodness. You aspire for the best. You aspire for the fairness. You aspire for everything divine. You aspire for everything divine, living aside, living across, residing across. You aspire for, but don't aspire anything worldly. Don't allow your selfish ego to grow, to contain, to influence, to dominate. We are dominated, we are imprisoned by the desire under the guidance of selfish ego. As Sri Ramakrishna has correctly mentioned, that we need to get out of this, we need to get rid of this. How do you do? The meditation, the process of meditation, the different processes can remove it, but it may take thousands of years. There are examples among our sages, there are examples. Even after having done the meditation for thousands of years, there were mistakes committed. There were downfalls among our sages, some of the sages. So what is the best principle? Sri Ramakrishna says, devotion. is the best principle. Nurture devotion in you. And how? What kind of devotion? A devotion which is free from any expectation. Is there an example? Swami Vivekananda has correctly given the example of Vrindavan, the example of gopis and gopis. That's the example. What is the example? A love for the divine without any aspiration in return. Vivekananda has said, a love which has got an expectation is a commerce. Love with expectation is a commerce. If any worldly relation nurtures kind of love with an expectation, that's nothing but a commerce. That's no love. A commerce is expectation. You give something, you take back something. If you're giving something and expecting something in return, that's a principle of commerce. Our sages says, in this world there is no role of commerce. It's a world of giving. It's a world of giving. It's a world of consecration. It's a world of you, yourself. You give yourself up. You continuously sacrifice yourself. Through sacrifice you can attain. What is that sacrifice? Our desire, our expectations, our choice. Our choice has actually created a world according to our choice. Our choice maintains a world according to our belief. Our choice is based on our selfish ego. There is an element, a small element, invisible element of selfish ego in all aspects of our choice. So whom do we surrender to? The sages are saying, you surrender to the divine. Choice, if at all some choice needs to be exercised, it's the choice of God. How do we understand the choice of God? Choice is there, nurtured and revealed through mind. Unless we come to know about what is there contained in His mind, how do we understand our choice, His choice, and consider that as our choice? That's the principle of oneness. The sages are saying, Tattvamasi. When you try to become one with Him, when through nurturing of devotion and love for Him, when you have become almost one with Him, then you understand the mind, the divine mind, the divine wish, the divine will. And the divine wish and divine will, if translated in our life, in our wish, and if that is considered as our wish and will, then it becomes the same as that divine wish and will. In our own way, in our own scale of operation, in our zone of discretion which we have, small zone of discretion where every individual being has got a kinghood. Every individual being is a leader in his or her own zone of discretion, which is there within his mind, within his own heart. Your heart is yours, your mind is yours, and you are the king of that heart and mind. You are the leader of that heart and mind. If you can invite a superior leader in that, if you can have a superior leader in place there, if you can have the superior leader guiding you always, like the chariot of this empirical life, if this chariot of this empirical life is led by the divine who is seated within, if that leadership is given unto him, if he undertakes the leadership of your life, of our life, of everybody's life, then the life becomes life of God on earth. This life becomes life of God on earth, and the life of God on earth is the life of a new civilization, is a potent for a new civilization. Life of God on earth would create a godly atmosphere on earth, a divine atmosphere on earth, a divine civilization would be created out of this. How does it operate? It operates on the principle of Satyam and Ritam. It operates on the principle of truth and truth in action. It operates on the principle of truth, eternal and empirical. It operates on the principle of considering eternal truth as over-embracing and empirical truth as follower of that eternal truth. Then there is no missing link, then there is no destructive link, then there is no distractions, then there is no going away, then there is no difference between, then there is no distance between God and the individual, becomes one single entity. God himself merges in. Sri Ramakrishna has given a unique example of a doll made up of salt. A doll of salt wants to measure the depth of the sea. A doll of salt, if it wants to measure the depth of the sea and goes inside and tries to measure, what does happen? It happens that the doll of salt melts down in the deep sea, in the sea of salt, and it becomes an element of the sea itself, and it doesn't. Sri Ramakrishna says that there is no one to give information. This information doesn't come back. It remains within the doll of salt, who is now melted in the ocean of that divine entity. In the divine ocean, the ocean of the divine consciousness, which is there around us, in us and without us. The ocean of the divine consciousness, we are at the marge of it, at the fringe of it. We need to be inside. We need to get inside. We need to get merged in, and then the civilization will find a new face, will find a new shape, will find a new entity, will find a new way of life, will find a new, as if a new species would generate on earth, as if a new species. When a human being transforms to a divine human person, when the attributes of human being transforms to divine attributes, when the desire is removed, when the selfish ego is contained down to its minimum level, when the selfish ego is unnoticeable in the person, when the divine ego flourishes in, when the mind is now the golden mind, when the mind turns into a golden mind, a divine mind, the person himself, the person herself becomes a divine person. Is a blissful situation, is an Anandapurna situation, is an Anandamaya kosha, is an Anandapurna situation, is a blissful situation wherein every entity thinks of God, looks for God, adheres to the principle of God, adheres to the attributes of divine, accepts the attributes of divine principle in life, follows the attributes of divine principles in life. When into action, the action is always guided by the divine principle. When they are nurturing thoughts, the thoughts are always tuned to the thoughts of the divine principle, thoughts of divinity, and that leads to a divine civilization. This is what our sages had expected thousands and thousands of years ago. Our sages had given a call, Shrinantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha. We are all the children of that immortal being, of that eternal being. And if we consider our endowment, if we consider that we are children, and if we accept our endowments, which are automatically, intrinsically planted in us, the endowment is endowment of divinity. We need to nurture that. We need to unfold that. Our sages have given a call, unfold that, unfold the divine within, try to unfold the divine principle within, the divine values within. Let us all nurture for God. Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat, Om Tat Sat. আমাদের আজকে কিছু প্রশ্ন উত্তরের কথা ছিল, যদি কেউ উত্থাপন করতে চান আমরা প্রশ্নোত্তর পর্বে প্রবেশ করব।
Constant attachment to our body, that attachment should come through meditation. We can meditate always. So through meditation, we can burn everything, all the right elements of it.
Faith in God.
Question of Mahavira women, যেটা আমরা জানি যে মাদার সান যেমন লাভ হয়, রাধার সঙ্গে যেমন শ্রীকৃষ্ণ যেতেন, কবি শুদ্ধ হতেন, সেরকম যদি ভালোবাসা থাকে তাহলে সেই ভালোবাসা কাম যদি থ্রু মেডিসিন উইথ দ্য গড, unless until we make with that and he makes me not turn to God. So meditation is the only thing by which we can reach to God.
Okay. The question is faith. How do we nurture faith? Maharaj says that faith has to be nurtured through Guru only, the spiritual teacher only. Because without the spiritual teacher, the faith cannot be nurtured. This is a practical point the Maharaj is saying, and he is saying that love should be free from all expectations, which has been mentioned already. Now regarding the faith, whether and who is the Guru, who is the spiritual master of a person. The spiritual masters are many. The spiritual master could be many. The spiritual master is a human person. In the human form, the spiritual master is there. But the spiritual master is the initiator. The journey is initiated by the spiritual master. Journey cannot close. Journey cannot be ended by a spiritual master. It's a beginning. It's not the end. Journey is initiated. That's why it's known as the initiation. Diksha is initiation. Why initiation? Because the journey is now started. Spiritual master gives a path, prescribes a path. That is known as prescriptive method. In our spiritual world, there are two methods, two broad divisions of method. One is prescriptive method, where the prescriptions are there, like spiritual master prescribes. The other one is emergent method, wherein it emerges automatically, it emerges gradually, like a seedling grows into a plant and tree gradually, which has been explained also. Now the role of a master is no doubt very important. Our Shastras, our spiritual texts have always prescribed for the spiritual master. In fact, in our ancient civilization, the sages all were spiritual masters. But they have never said that without the spiritual master as an external person, you cannot attain God. When the mind becomes the master, when Mon becomes Guru, when the mind becomes master, that is the ultimate. At the end, when mind becomes master, Mani Guru, when the mind becomes master, then the divine realization starts. Prior to that, it is a preparation. Like in an Ashtanga Siddhi, there are preparatory tests, and there is a phase of attainment, there is a phase of final consummation. Now, the spiritual journey, in the spiritual journey, initiation is the beginning. It's a new life. Initiation means you have got a new life. Diksha, you have got a Diksha, so you have got a new life. A new life is a life which is a journey towards God in the path of God. That's a new life. And that initiation may be given by an external person whom you can call your master, your Guru. That is a process, that is a method. The initiation may be spontaneous also. The initiation may be yourself having received the initiation also. The case of Shuttaka, who came to sage Gautama at the age of 10. Satyakam later on became the only sage who is a sage of all four Vedas after Vasishtha Rishi, sage Vasishtha. After sage Vasishtha, the Satyakam is the only sage who is a sage representing all four Vedas, Rig, Sam, Yajur and Atharva. How did he become? At the age of 10, he came to sage Gautama with an expectation to become a disciple of Gautama. He was asked certain questions which he had answered very truthfully. Gautama was overwhelmed at his utterance of truth and accepted him as a disciple, and at the same moment, the moment he had accepted him as a disciple, At the same moment, he gave Satyakam a responsibility. What was the responsibility? There were more than 200 cows. Most of them were lame, old, don't give milk, non-milching cows, and most of them were ill, old age, ill. Satyakam was given a responsibility to take the cows to forest. Gautam said, you take the cows to forest, leave there. Leave there till the time the cows are all well-shaped, well-bodied. The cows grow into a number of 1,000 and all are free from the diseases. These three conditions he gave, then only you come back. Satyakam was very happy because his aspiration was fulfilled. His aspiration was to become a disciple of Gautam. He became a disciple, but without any initiation, without any mantra diksha, without any guidance in spiritual journey, without anything except for an assignment. He got an assignment, he took the cows happily to the forest, had spent years and years, decades and decades in the forest, alone in the midst of all these animals, and gradually he had attained the truth. 4 different ways. This is known as Chatushkal Brahman. 4 different ways of realization. One was the air blowing, touching his ear and spreading a message of Brahman. He got the message of Brahman which is carried down through air. Vayu. Vayu Vahita Brahma Vidya. Satyakam. Chatushkal Brahman. Then Akashaban Brahman. The sky itself had conveyed the message of Brahman through lightning. Through a lightning wave from the sky itself, Satyakam had received the message of Brahman. That is the second part of Chatushkal Brahman. So one is from air, one is from the sky. The third, Satyakam had received the third message, that's from the animals. The animals had gathered around and had whispered before his ears, saying that this is what is Brahman. Brahman is Yatoh vai imani bhutani yayante yena jatani jivanti tad Brahman tad pravishanti tad Brahma. Whatever has taken a form, whatever has come into life, whatever has got a revelation in this world are all the different forms of Brahman. That was the message conveyed by the animals. Then again, the river was flowing in the forest. The river had a dancing wave. Flowing and dancing wave. The flowing and dancing wave of water had conveyed a message of Brahman to him. This is the 4 different aspects of Brahma Vidya Satyakam had attained. How did he attain? He had attained through his own devotion and one concentric form of devotion, that he is now happy that God has accepted him through his master, though the master does not and have never played a role of being a master. But he has attained the knowledge of the Supreme. Sri Ramakrishna says, when Mon becomes Guru, the mind becomes Guru. That is the final stage. The external Guru starts the journey, allows you to move forward, gives you initiation and tells you go ahead. You move forward. Yes. You move forward. This is the path, this is the journey, you go ahead. And gradually the mind is tuned to that. When the mind gets transformed, when the mind is tuned to that, gradually what happens? Mind becomes the master. Mind becomes the guide. Mind becomes the guru. When the mind becomes guru, then you are always under his guidance. Because external person's guidance you may not be always under. But the mind is with you. So wherever you are, in whatever situation you are, in whatever condition your mind is in whatever interactions you are, mind is there present. So mind can always guide you. So when the mind becomes guru, when the mind turns into your own spiritual master, that is the best situation, that is the highest situation. And in our spiritual world, the mind becoming the spiritual master is the ultimate expectation. When the mind becomes the spiritual master, you are safe. That is the safest method. And how? Meditation is an automatic thing. When you are doing an absorbed work, you are doing a meditation. You are doing a work wherein you don't have an expectation, you are absorbed in the act of the work. You are doing a meditation. Karma yogi, you are doing a meditation. Jnana yogi, when you are in the swadhana, in the aspiration of the knowledge, when you are actually aspiring for the divine knowledge or supreme knowledge or even worldly knowledge, through that you are a scientist, you are trying to attain scientific truth. You are actually trying to unfold the wholeness, a part of the whole truth. Scientific truth is a part of the wholeness, a part of the complete truth. So when you are trying to unfold that as a scientist without even thinking of God, you are also doing meditation. That is Jnana Yogi. You are doing a meditation as a aspiration, knowledge aspirant. Then Bhagavan says, Shankha Yoga is there. Shankha, this is the word which is actually coined from the numericity, numericals, 0 and 1. Shankha is the fundamental principle of computer. The computerization, the binary system is actually 0 and 1. The binary system was there in our Shankha. Shankha is actually binary. What are the things? Are either whole, you have to consider the whole as a whole, or you have to consider the whole as nothing. Buddhists have gone to the zero way. They have considered the whole is nothing, zero. We have considered the whole as a Purna. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vavasisha Purnamadam Purnavida Purnat Purnam Udachyate. So this is Purna, this is whole, that is Purna, that is whole. Now if you take out Purna from the Purna, even then the Purna remains. 1 minus 1 is equal to 1. That's the spiritual formula. Meaning what? In a law of thermodynamics, Enrico Fermi wrote 3 laws of thermodynamics. The first law, second law and third law. The first law is the law of conservation of energy. In it, Enrico Fermi says that in a closed system, the energy remains the same. If this universe is a closed system, the total energy of this universe remains the same. You cannot transform, you cannot make it grow, you cannot make it, you cannot reduce it. Unless there is an external source comes in contact, in the closed system, the total energy remains same. So how does this movement occur? This is transformation of one form of energy to the other. The potential energy gets transformed to the kinetic energy. Kinetic in one way converts to kinetic in a different way. So, but the overall total energy remains the same in a closed system. Now in a thermodynamic principle 2, Enrico Fermi talks about the entropy in a closed system remaining the same. And if you want to touch the absolute zero, you cannot. That means the absolutism is not permitted. And again, when Albert Einstein comes and talks about the photon, the speed of light, the velocity of light, he considers the velocity of light as the ultimate. Now, up to this scientific research, scientific thoughts have progressed. That does not mean the truth is up to this. Truth has got unfolded. Truth has opened up to this in the material world. In a spiritual world, truth has got even larger sphere. A person with a spiritual understanding does not have any space, time and contextual limitation. Is open, is elaborate, is one. When you have the spiritual realization, you don't have any discrimination, non-discriminative thought, non-discriminative consciousness, non-discriminative thinking. The mind of that kind is a divine mind, and that mind is the best guide for a spiritual aspirant. Therefore, আমরা যখন ভাবি যে মনই গুরু হবে, মন যখন গুরু হয়ে উঠবে, সেটা হলো সেরা, সেটা হলো শেষতম শ্রেষ্ঠ অবস্থা। শ্রীরামকৃষ্ণদেব সেই মনের কথা বলেছেন যে মনটিকে অন্য নামে বলা হয়েছে দিব্য মন। দিব্য মন তার অন্য নাম দেওয়া হয়েছে, সেটা দিব্য মন বা ভাগবতী মন। ভাগবতী মন হলো এমন মন যে সবসময় ভগবানের কথা চিন্তা করতে সাহায্য করে, সবসময় ভগবানের কথা আগলে রাখে, ভগবানের জন্য ভালোবাসা সঞ্চয় করে রাখে, ভগবানের জন্য ভালোবাসাকে সবসময় সে জাগিয়ে দেয়, সবসময় ভগবানের দিকে মতি রাখে, অন্য দিকে বিচলিত হতে দেয় না, অন্য দিক থেকে মতি সে সরিয়ে নিয়ে আসে, অন্য সকল কিছু থেকে মনকে গুটিয়ে নিয়ে আসে, ভগবানের পাদপদ্মে মনটিকে ফেলে। হে প্রভু সচ্চিদানন্দ পরব্রহ্ম সনাতন, ভগবৎ পাদপদ্মে সবার মনে মতিব, সবার মনে মতিব। मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता, मनः मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठिता। आभिः आभिः मेधि वेदस्य मानिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहसिः। अनेन ऋतेन अहोरात्रां संदधामि। ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि। तद् माम् अवतु तद् वक्ताराम् अवतु। अवतु माम् अवतु वक्ताराम् अवतु वक्ताराम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणः चक्षुः। श्रोत्रमातः बलम् इन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि। सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदाम्। माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यात् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत्। अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु। धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
ॐ पूर्णमादाः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अवशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सौनो अवतु सौनो भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनो अधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ शं नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शं नो भवति आर्यमः शं नो इन्द्रः बृहस्पतिः शं नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमः ब्रह्मणे नमः देवायु त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तद्मामवतु तद्वक्तारामवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्ताराम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रां कर्णेभिः शृण्वां देवा भद्रं भुषेमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गै तुष्टुवांशतनुभिः वशेम देवहितं यतायुः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः আমরা সকলে একটু 2 মিনিট ধ্যান করবো। जय माँ जय माँ।